Listen carefully. This is not a rumor anymore. This is not speculation. And this is not coming from social media leaks. This is confirmed. A Trump executive order has now moved the conversation around $2,000 dividend-style checks from idea to official federal action. And what matters most is this detail that many people are missing. Those checks are no longer limited to the original groups everyone was talking about. They have been expanded quietly, strategically, and faster than anyone expected. Now, before you jump to conclusions, slow down. Because what I'm about to explain will sound unbelievable at first, but the details matter more than the headline. For months, Americans have heard chatter about dividend-style payments. People argued online. Analysts disagreed. Some said it was impossible without Congress. Others said it was just campaign talk. But here's the truth. An executive order doesn't need a floor vote. It doesn't need months of debate. And when it's signed, agencies move immediately, sometimes before the public even realizes what changed. That's exactly what just happened. This executive order authorizes a framework that allows targeted federal dividend payments structured in a way that connects directly to existing government systems already in place. In plain English, the government didn't build something new. They unlocked something that already exists. And that's why this is moving fast. Now, let me be very clear about one thing right up front. This does not mean everyone in America wakes up tomorrow with $2,000 in their bank account. Anyone telling you that is lying. But it does mean something very important. It means the universe of people who can qualify just got wider, much wider. And most of the newly included groups aren't even realizing it yet, because they're not checking the right signals. Here's why this executive order matters. Unlike stimulus checks from the past, these payments are being described internally as dividends, not emergency relief. That wording is intentional. Dividends are tied to participation in the system, not panic, not shutdowns, not disasters. That shift alone changes everything, because when payments are framed this way, they can be justified through existing benefit structures, tax systems, and federal account linkages, and that's how this executive order avoids the usual roadblocks. Now, why now? Timing matters. We are moving into a critical window between the end of the year and the start of January. Budgets reset, agencies rebalance, payment systems recalibrate. This is the moment when eligibility lists are updated, and this order arrived right inside that window. That's not an accident. What's even more important is what the executive order does not say publicly. It doesn't list names. It doesn't spell out every group. It doesn't use flashy language. Instead, it authorizes agencies to identify, expand, and adjust qualifying populations based on income signals, benefit status, and participation markers already on file. That's why most people haven't connected the dots yet. They're waiting for an announcement that sounds loud. This one isn't loud, it's precise. And precision is dangerous if you're not paying attention. Because while people argue on social media about whether the checks are real, the back-end systems are already responding. Internal flags are being adjusted, accounts are being reviewed, payment channels are being mapped. And here's the part that should get your attention. The original groups everyone talked about, they're no longer the full list. New groups have quietly entered the picture. People who were previously told, you don't qualify, may now fall into a different category altogether. But you won't know that unless you understand how this works. This order does not require you to apply right away. It does not ask you to sign up on a website. And it does not send alerts to your phone. Instead, it works through systems that already track eligibility in the background. Which means by the time many people hear about it, their status may already be determined. And this is where mistakes happen. People assume no action means no opportunity. That's wrong. Sometimes no action means you're already being evaluated. Now let me address something important. Why are officials being quiet? Because executive orders like this are designed to reduce political noise during early implementation. Agencies need time to align. Treasury needs payment pathways finalised. Federal databases need to synchronise. If officials made bold promises before that work was done, confusion would explode. So instead, they let the systems move first. Then the messaging follows. And that's exactly what we're watching unfold. Now, before you get too excited, hear this. Not everyone who qualifies will receive the same amount. Not everyone is in the first wave. And not every payment comes as a clean $2,000 deposit. But the $2,000 figure is very real, and it represents the upper benchmark, not a rumour. Who gets closer to that number depends on category, income signal, and benefit overlap. And no, this is not replacing Social Security, it's not cutting SSI, and it's not reducing SSDI. In fact, for many recipients, those systems are the reason they're now being looked at. But I'm not going to jump ahead yet, because the biggest mistake people make with updates like this is assuming they know who qualifies before seeing the full expansion, and that's what Part 2 is about. In just a moment, I'm going to explain who is now included, why these groups were chosen, and why millions of Americans are still overlooking their own eligibility. And when I tell you which category created the biggest surprise inside the system, you'll understand why officials aren't advertising this loudly yet. Stay with me. What happens next will surprise you. Now let's slow this down and get very precise, because this is where most people misinterpret what's happening. When people first heard about dividend-style checks, the assumption was simple. You either fit the obvious category. Executive order didn't create a single new payment group. It restructured how qualifying groups are identified. That's the key difference. Instead of asking, "Are you in this one box?" the system now asks, "How many signals do you meet across multiple systems?" And that change alone expanded eligibility far beyond what anyone expected. Here's how it worked before. Most early discussions focused on very narrow categories: people receiving certain federal benefits, certain income thresholds, very limited pilot populations. If you were outside those lines, you were told to stop paying attention. But the new framework doesn't look at one box. It looks at layers, income patterns, benefit interaction, household structure, and participation markers already on file with federal agencies. Now listen carefully to this part. One of the first groups seeing expanded consideration is fixed income seniors, especially those who are not receiving large benefit increases that keep up with inflation. This doesn't automatically mean everyone on Social Security. It means seniors whose income profile shows compression, rising costs without matching growth. That signal matters. Another group added to the expanded pool includes disability-linked recipients, not just those receiving SSDI or SSI, but individuals whose records show long-term disability status interacting with work limitations, partial earnings, or benefit phase-outs. That's a category most people never check for themselves, because it's not always visible on a benefit letter. Then there's a group no one was talking about at all: low to moderate income households who are still working, but whose earnings are unstable, seasonal, or interrupted, and who interact with federal systems through taxes, healthcare subsidies, or benefit offsets. These individuals were previously ignored because they didn't look like beneficiaries. Now they're being evaluated differently, and here's something critical. This expansion does not happen all at once. Agencies were instructed to prioritize existing data over new applications. Why? Because speed matters. If the system already knows who you are, how much you earn, and what programs you touch, it can assess eligibility quietly, without paperwork. That's why some people will be included without ever realizing they were under review. Now let me address one of the biggest misunderstandings spreading online. No, this is not a blanket giveaway. No, this is not free money for everyone. And no, this does not mean open enrollment. This is targeted expansion, precision-based, and that's exactly why so many people are missing it. Another group seeing attention is households impacted by benefit overlap penalties. These are people whose total support looks high on paper, but in reality is fragmented across multiple programs, often reducing net monthly stability. For years, these households fell into gaps. Now, those gaps are being treated as eligibility signals, and this is where income thresholds get tricky. There is no single number you can point to and say, if you make under this, you qualify. Instead, agencies are looking at ranges and interactions. One income level combined with no dependents might not qualify. The same income with caregiving responsibilities or medical offsets might. That's why simple charts online are misleading. They are too flat for a layered system. And before you ask, geography matters too. Certain regions with higher cost pressures are weighted differently. That doesn't mean blue states or red states. It means areas where federal data shows benefit stress. Again, quiet adjustments, not public announcements. Now, let's talk about something that surprises almost everyone. Many people assume that if you already receive federal benefits, you're capped. That is not always true. In some cases, existing benefits are actually the reason someone is flagged, not excluded. The system sees stable participation, verified identity, and validated financial information. That makes eligibility assessment easier, not harder. And that's part of why scammers are already trying to confuse people. You do not need to call anyone. You do not need to click a link. You do not need to claim this right now. Anyone telling you to act urgently online is trying to steal information. The real process doesn't work like that. It works quietly, behind the scenes, which brings us to the question everyone keeps asking. If people qualify, how does the money actually move? Because understanding the payment process is the difference between patience and panic. And I'm going to walk you through when payments could happen, how they're likely to be delivered, and why the people expecting instant deposits are setting themselves up for disappointment. The timeline matters more than the headline. Now let's talk about the part everyone is impatient about, the money. Because this is where expectations get completely disconnected from reality, and where a lot of people end up confused, frustrated, or misled. So listen carefully. Even though this executive order is confirmed, that does not mean payments start the moment ink hits paper. Federal money doesn't move like that. It moves through systems, through schedules, through verification layers, and understanding that process puts you ahead of almost everyone else. First, let's talk about how these payments are designed to be delivered. This is not a brand new payment channel. The framework relies on existing federal payment rails, the same infrastructure used for Social Security, tax refunds, veteran benefits, and other Treasury-backed transfers. That includes direct deposit to accounts already on file, government-linked benefit cards, and, in limited cases, mailed payments. Translation: if the government already sends you money, they know where to send this to. And if they don't, that slows things down. Now here's an important truth most headlines won't tell you. There is no single payment date. There never is. Payments like this move in waves. Why? Because eligibility is confirmed in batches, not all at once. Agencies validate groups, Treasury prepares distribution windows, and payments are released in sequences. That's why some people hear about others getting paid and assume they were missed, when in reality, their review simply hasn't reached that wave yet. This executive order authorizes staggered deployment. That's intentional. It prevents system overload and reduces error risk. Now let's talk timing. The most realistic window being discussed internally aligns with late December moving into January. That doesn't mean everyone gets paid in January. It means that's when the first structured disbursements become possible. Once eligibility layering, account verification, and compliance checks are complete. If you're expecting an overnight deposit or a surprise notification tomorrow morning, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. That's not how this works. Now about the $2,000 figure. This is probably the most misunderstood part. The $2,000 number represents the maximum dividend amount authorized under the framework for certain qualifying profiles. It does not mean everyone receives $2,000. Some will receive less, some may receive phased or partial amounts, and some may see amounts adjusted based on benefit interaction. That's not a trick, that's how federal payment structures work. Another important point, these payments are not automatically taxable in the same way wages are, but they are also not ignored by the system. How they are treated depends on classification, income level, and reporting structure, which is why agencies are being cautious. They don't want to create downstream tax confusion that blows back on recipients later. Now let me clear up another rumour. This is not replacing future stimulus. This is not cancelling COLA. And this does not mean SSA checks are delayed, reduced, or redirected. In fact, payment systems are being instructed to avoid conflicts with existing benefit schedules. That's another reason rollouts are staggered, to avoid overlapping critical deposit dates. Here's where pressure enters the picture. January is not just another month, it's a reset point. New fiscal tracking, new reporting cycles, political visibility increases. That's why this executive move happened when it did. But pressure doesn't equal speed, it equals sequencing. And the people who benefit most from this are the ones who understand that patience is part of the process. Now let's talk about what won't happen. You will not receive a text message asking you to confirm your bank. You will not receive a call asking for your social security number. You will not be asked to pay a fee to unlock a payment. Anyone suggesting that is a scammer. Real federal payments come through verified channels, not urgency tactics. And here's something important that doesn't get enough attention. Some people will see no movement at first, even if they qualify. Why? Because their current payment pathways are being verified or merged. That doesn't mean rejection, it means delay. And delays are common in structured rollouts like this. Now let me ask you something honestly. Would you rather get rushed money with errors attached, or verified money that holds up? Federal systems always choose the second option. That's why this feels slower than people expect, but it's also why it sticks. And this brings us to the most important part of all. What should you be doing right now? Because there are smart steps, and there are panic steps. Now let's bring this home, because this is where clarity replaces anxiety. Right now, the worst thing you can do is panic. And the second worst thing you can do is ignore this completely. The smartest move sits right in the middle. Here's what you should be doing, and just as important, what you should not be doing. First, understand this. There is no rush to apply. There is no secret portal. There is no deadline clock counting down today. This executive order is working through systems that already know who you are. Your role right now is awareness, not action. The most important thing to watch for is official communication. That can come as a physical letter, a verified notice tied to an existing benefit account, or a formal update connected to a federal system you already use. If you don't receive anything immediately, that does not mean you're excluded. Many people won't hear anything until after eligibility waivers are finalized. So patience matters. Next, take one simple step that protects you. Make sure your existing information is accurate. If you receive federal benefits, your current mailing address and deposit information should already be up to date. If you filed taxes recently, that data is already in the system. You do not need to create anything new, just make sure nothing is outdated. Now let me be very direct about scams. Anyone telling you this money is about to expire is lying. Anyone asking for fees is lying. Anyone demanding immediate verification is lying. Real federal programs do not operate under pressure tactics. They operate quietly, methodically, and steadily. And that's exactly what's happening here. Now zoom out for a moment. This executive order is not just about one payment. It's about testing a new approach. Dividend-style support tied to participation, verified systems, and targeted impact is a different model than emergency stimulus. If this model works, it doesn't disappear after one wave. It evolves. That's why officials are watching this carefully. And that's why you should too. For many Americans, this moment feels familiar. Costs are higher, margins are tighter, and stability feels fragile. This kind of policy move is designed to stabilize without chaos, to help without headlines screaming, and to reach people who are usually missed. If you felt overlooked before, stay alert. If you've been told you don't qualify in the past, don't assume that still applies. Systems change, rules adjust, and this executive order proves that. The key is staying informed, not emotional. Reaction fades, information lasts, and that's why understanding this now puts you in a stronger position moving forward, no matter what comes next. So here's my final message to you. Don't let confusion steal your peace. Don't let scams steal your information. And don't let opportunity pass just because it wasn't loud. Stay informed, stay patient, and stay connected. If you want clear, honest updates without the hype, make sure you're subscribed and staying tuned. Because when real information matters, you deserve to hear it first. And I'll be right here to walk you through it.